In fact, more we feel smaller about ourselves in front of God, better it is. Let us remind ourselves of Lord Jesus' statement that to enter the gates of heaven, one have to become very humble, insignificant, become like little children. What child is though? After every meditation, we have a typical, very peculiar condition emerging as a result. Don't we like to maintain that spiritual status or inner condition or that lightness that you felt after the meditation, or that you feel so centered within yourself that you like to continue in this state of centeredness within? Let's call it as a meditative state which has emerged out of this meditation. Is it enough that we meditate for a few minutes and enjoy that meditation? Won't it be nice if it can extend beyond these 30, 40, 50 minutes of meditation? It will be wonderful if we can meditate actively daily. But to remain actively meditating versus meditatively remaining active, they are two different things. Often enthusiasts who start spiritual practices, in the beginning they love it so much. And slowly it so happens that we fall in love with such a state and we like to go on extending such a state for a longer period. Otherwise, having earned a spiritual condition and losing it right away would be like, you have your weekly or monthly salaries, and before the second day starts or third day starts, you have blown away all your salary. What will happen to such income? What will happen to such a family? In other words, this scenario with meditative state, what will happen if you go on losing meditative state? It will be a tragedy. You have worked for nothing. So, how to ensure that the meditative state remains to our heart's desire? So recognize that your heart is desiring it, and let's make a willful intention before meditation itself. Let's become more cognizant with this fact that yes, I need to stay in touch with this inner state, and that there is a need for such a thing. So this much of awareness, this much of intention should be good enough to start with. And let's see how it mushrooms and becomes a big, giant thing later on in our life, where meditative state becomes the very nature of us in a more palpable way, say. Now, these intentions of preponing certain states are easily made possible when the inner urge or inner thirst or inner restlessness makes our heart call for something higher. If you are happy with our present state, then there is nothing to worry about. If you are content with your present state, there is nothing to worry about. Then the idea of evolution will fail. If we really want to evolve, expand the consciousness, then I have to keep my goal higher than the present one. The present condition must not satisfy me. Present richness doesn't satisfy us. Why should present spiritual state should satisfy us? So what is this inner call? When we offer this voice of the heart to a higher level of consciousness or higher source, or as some system talk about that I am now connected with my inner resources or my inner divine source or the godly agency. somewhere, somehow, we are trying to invoke the higher help. That means I am at a lower state, which is good. We did not feel inferior about it. In fact, more we feel smaller about ourselves in front of God, better it is. Let us remind ourselves of Lord Jesus' statement that to enter the gates of heaven, one had to become very humble, insignificant, become like little children, or childish though. That sort of innocence, that sort of innocent approach in our prayer, in our inner connectedness will have to be recalled. So now, having established the goal that yes, some higher state is my goal, which of course will change every day. Once you reach a certain higher level of consciousness, that has become your normal state now. But then something higher will be pursued in smaller and subtler doses. You would crave that, yes, I must achieve that state. And after a couple of meditations, you may be able to achieve. Then what happens to that level of consciousness? It becomes normal for you. And again, something higher is inspiring you. It is like always, some higher is calling us. It's like God is always calling us towards Himself. Research in the field of spirituality is very difficult. But we can have indirect impact of spiritual practices on our emotional, intellectual, and physical well-being. See, when you are measuring things in an indirect way, I think the whole subject becomes quite challenging. But it becomes easier when you say, oh, I feel happy at emotional level. That can be measured. I develop my intellectual capacities even more when I meditate. That can be measured. All these quotients, most psychologists are able to successfully monitor the shift. So, directly, spirituality cannot be measured, but consequences of spiritual practices can be measured at various levels: mental, physiological, neurological, and of course, emotionally. Spiritual measurement would be like, trying to measure the electron speed and its position. It's very difficult. A person who is moving on spiritually, and as he witnesses or she witnesses the movement in others at a spiritual level, I think they can resonate and perceive each other's movement. Behind all this, childhood successes, educational successes, professional successes, yet there is something deeper calling it in. These are all material successes and they are good. We want to be successful in every facet of our life, but not at the cost of what is vital and what is fundamental to our existence. The main goal is to evolve to the highest if possible. And what is this evolution to the highest? Please read this book, Designing Destiny. It can make you understand what all is involved in all these things. And then maybe you will hear more questions and we can always discuss that. Rituals have purpose. It creates environment. It's like stencils. When a child doesn't know how to write ABCD, we give them stencils. All these rituals inculcate something definitive. It shapes us. The forms that we worship, akar. Final purpose is to move away from akar to nirakar, from form to formlessness, from finite thing into infinite thing. But if we remain glued to stencils, even in college, you'll become a laughing stock. In spirituality, we move away from beliefs. It's not that we don't believe, but we make beliefs experienceable. When they say in religion, God is omnipresent, God is omniscient, we actualize this knowledge in spirituality through experience, day after day. In my worldly life, I have seen that being a pharmacist, being father to someone, children to someone, son of someone, friends of so many, it has not robbed me from spiritual endeavor. When I go to sleep, I have a simple process, how to make even this sleep productive. I close my eyes, offer my prayer as best as I can. Not like a mantra, but actually trying to connect with my Maker and start remaining in osmosis, kind of, with His consciousness and go to sleep. Sleep will change and it will become spiritual in nature. When you wake up in the morning, again have a positive suggestion that may my day proceed in divine consciousness, and you begin your meditation. When you meditate and you have seen the effect of meditation, identify what that effect is all about. Hold on to that state as much as you can. When you're in the kitchen trying to make breakfast, hold on to that state. When you partake breakfast, hold on to that state. Taking a shower, hold on to that. You're driving, hold on to that state as much as you can. You don't have to try hard. It becomes our second nature in holding that inner state. So meditation was done, but you became meditative during the daytime. So even our material work, bhautik work, things that we do in day-to-day life, will have the flavor of your meditative state. So there is no point differentiating, but bring in spirituality into material life, in your business world. We can have this permanent backdrop of spiritual state within us and go out into the world. Science and spirituality, science and religion. You know the story. Copernicus, Galileo, and all those, great scientists. You see, scientific discovery was deadly against the religious belief in those days. Now there's revenge time. Revenge time, how? There are beautiful spiritual researches coming up. Now science wants a proof. Earlier, religion wanted a proof from science. Now science wants a proof from spiritual approaches. And nothing wrong with it. Spiritual experience, the word itself, spirit, it's so subtle, you cannot never measure it. Of course, the spiritual experiences can have neurological impact, and this neurological impact can be measured, but never the spiritual experiences. It's an indirect measurement.